Welcome to Speaking Holistically, the podcast that explores the power of alternative medicine, natural healing, and homeopathic solutions to help you achieve true wellness. Each week, Dr. Jen and Amy G dive into the world of holistic health, discussing researched, time-tested remedies with expert insights from Dr. Jen, as well as real-life stories from patients to empower you to take charge of your health. So if you're ready to embrace a more natural path to wellness, let's start speaking holistically, because true healing begins from within. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Holistically. I'm your co-host, Amy G. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Jen, and we're doing a Family Health Hub episode, and we're talking about an interesting topic that'll probably perk up some ears, which is health insurance.
So the average health insurance premiums in 2024, because we don't have any, statistics for 2025 yet, is about $9,000 for a single coverage for one person. That's about how much it costs per year.
Oh my God.
And if you're looking at family coverage, it's about $25,000 plus a year for health insurance.
I had no idea it was that high.
It's very high, which is why so many people, even if they don't have to work, they will still get a job so that they can get their employer to pay for at least part of their health insurance. So there's some options. There's some other options besides this, and I'll get into that a little bit here in a minute. Yeah. But I had a friend on the phone the other day, and she went in to go do genetic testing for her sons, and she said that she was paying $700 per person per kid. And I was like, oh, that seems like a lot of money. And she's like, well, that's our copay. And I was like, how much did the genetic testing cost you? And it was $4,000, I believe, for each of her boys.
What?
And I was shocked because there's other ways to do this as well. So,
you know that.
Yeah. So if you look at how much these CEOs are being paid, and not saying that they're not worth it, maybe they are worth $10 million a year for their salaries. But I know that we spent, if you look at the family coverage for 20 years or almost 20 years at, let's say, $20,000 a year, that's a pretty significant chunk of money. And we could have bought a vacation house or paid off our house or, had college tuition saved. So we did things a little bit differently, and it's not going to work for every person, but there's some other options for people out there who just don't feel like this is working for them.
Okay.
So there are some other options for all of these things, but we do genetic testing at the office, and we'll put the link below as well so that you can access it. And you get about 30 pages of information back, and it's saliva. So it's definitely an easier way than trying to do a blood test, and it's much, much cheaper and extremely accurate. This company also destroys the genetic material after they test it, so they're not selling it to a pharmaceutical company or some other corporation that's going to have your genetic coding with your name and all the other stuff associated with it. Some people are okay with that information being out there, other people aren't. I told my kids, I was like, I don't really want to be buried, because God forbid they open my casket 20 years from now and next thing you know, I'm walking around again. Like, I'm not sure I'm up for that. And that's just me, I'm like, I don't know, like there's just too much advancement for me in certain areas as far as questionable things go. And I get that the advancement is very, very important in some other areas, but take the good, you take the bad, when it all comes together with it. So
I kind of wish you would be cloned, so I have to disagree with like not having you buried.
I'm tired. I don't think I want to do this again. Like one and done. So I'm not going to be Dolly the sheep, right? And then I don't know if you ever saw that movie Multiplicity, and if y'all are younger than me, you probably haven't seen it. Oh, you haven't seen it?
No.
But Michael Keaton, back in the 80s, and Michael Keaton has too many things to do. His wife's needing him to do things. His job's needing him to do things. He's got to be somewhere else. So he figures out a way to clone himself. But each clone gets dumber and dumber with each version, and it just creates more work. So I love that movie because I always think, gosh, if I could just clone myself, then I thought, no, I'd have to micromanage that too. So forget it. Anyway, doing the genetic testing can be really, really good. It's really easy. And like I said, we'll put the link below and you can do that. And I think it runs for the works is $349. And they'll give you all the information you need. Yeah. And then you can take that wherever you need to, but you have that done. So instead of your copay being $700 for a couple of genetic tests versus a plethora of genetic tests, this may be a better financial way of handling it. We had insurance for almost 20 years and I got rid of it and was like, nope, not doing this anymore. We've never used it. I had all my babies at home. Insurance didn't cover it. I send myself out for labs. You have other physicians that have cash prices for sending people out for labs. So I got sent out for $1,700 worth of labs. The insurance didn't pay for it. That's how you figure out what you have, is when you try to use it, right? So you never know what's covered until you try to use your insurance. So it's just this shell game for most of us, is trying to figure out, it's like, well, how much is that going to cost? And the answer you always get is, well, we don't know yet. It's like, well, wait a minute. If you went to a restaurant, it was like, I'm going to get the steak and the potato. How much is that? Well, we don't know yet. Like, would you order it? No, but you're kind of stuck in this system that doesn't give you what you need, right? So we basically do almost everything cash, which is way, way cheaper. Our son broke his arm and we called the children's hospital and said, okay, so he broke his arm. Can we, how much is the cast? And they were like, oh, it's $350 cash and you have to pay up front. I'm like, well, that's a heck of a lot cheaper than 1 month of insurance premiums. You know what I mean? So just asking for the cash price is really important. When I lived in California, I had a patient who didn't have insurance and she was trying this prescription and it was like $300 and something, and they asked her for an insurance card and she's like, I don't have one. And they're like, oh, well, here, we'll just scan this barcode for uninsured Californians, and it brought it down to $13. So, asking people if they have the cash price is really important. I send people out for MRIs all the time, and they're $500 to $550, depending on if there's contrast involved. And otherwise you go and you're like, I'm going to use my insurance. And I had a patient do that, said, no, I'll just go through my insurance. I said, okay. So he was charged at the same facility, $5,000 for the MRI, and his copay was $1,800.
Oh my God.
And I was like, he's like, I should have listened to you. I'm like, well, you did what you did, but people don't know. So that's why I'm trying to explain this. I'm not telling you to get rid of your insurance, but you may want to change it. You may want to have certain things covered and other things not covered, because that might be causing the price to go up too high. So for example, when we had insurance, my husband and I had our own policy and we had a newborn, and to add him to the policy within the first month was going to cost us like $500 a month. If we waited till he was a month old, it was going to charge us $275 a month. And if we got him his own policy, ready for this? Didn't put him on our insurance.
Okay.
If we got him his own policy, it was $50 a month.
What?
And this is not through this is not through any kind of social services. This was through a major insurance company. So I know. So that's why I'm telling people, this is why we're doing this episode, is to ask questions. Don't just go, oh, okay, I guess that's how much it is, because not necessarily. So I also had maternity taken off of mine because I'm not having any more babies, obviously. And it wasn't covering it anyway because we were having home births, right?
Yeah,
so,
you were using it. Yeah.
And we had pharmaceutical stuff taken off because we don't do that either. So if I had to have some sort of pharmaceutical at some point, for some reason, I would just pay cash for that, because over 20 years, it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than paying for this other stuff. So now that may not be you. That may not be you at all, and that's okay. I'm not saying you have to do that, but there's other ways of thinking this through. There's something else called family health shares. So I don't know, or Christian health shares. I don't know if you've heard of that before, Amy.
I have, but only because you and I have spoken about it.
Okay. So that is a Christian-based or faith-based pool that they pull together. So you pay the premiums into this pool, and then they approve things based upon what your needs are. So they don't cover abortions. They don't cover certain things because it's based on a faithful stance. So depending on where you're at, that may be something to look into too. And a lot of people haven't heard of that. I also did increase my med pay on my car insurance in case something happens there, because I don't have health insurance. So there's a lot of ways to kind of work through this stuff.
Yeah.
FSA and HSA, I don't know if people have heard of that, but you've got the flex healthcare spending accounts, and you've got
Healthcare savings account or
healthcare
HSA.
savings account. Yeah. So some of them roll over for the next year. Some of them do not. So you have to use them by the end of the year. And now they're getting harder and harder to use. They make it more difficult. Let's put it that way. If you walked in and got a candy bar and Band-Aids at Walgreens, they're not going to ask you for a receipt necessarily or question that. But if you buy a supplement somewhere, they're going to want a diagnosis code and all these other things now, which is, it's getting a little bit out of control, because really it's your money. If you want to spend it however you want to spend on whatever healthcare you want to spend it on, receipt should suffice. You shouldn't have to get a letter on the doctor's letterhead now. I mean, it's gotten out of control. And they know that the doctors don't want to do this. So that's how they like, well, we'll just hold on to your money. And I was like, not in my patient's world. Let's just be real. So I'll fight to the death for them. I'm like, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of ways that you can do things. And if you don't know how an FSA or an HSA work, make sure you look into that, talk to HR at your company, whatever, or if you're, self-employed, you can actually get those as well. So take a look at that, and that will help offset some of your healthcare spending. And then, start looking into paying cash for certain things. And, I've had patients say, well, I have insurance, I want to use it. I'm like, that's great, but that doesn't work for everything. And it's actually, like I said, way cheaper in some regards to not use it. And the insurance companies know that too. If you don't use your insurance, but you're paying their premiums, they're pretty excited about that. They don't have to deal with all of this stuff, right? So, but being sent out for a $5,000 MRI, which is the same as a $500 MRI in the same facility and the same machine and everything, but it's just on who's being billed. So make sure you're always asking for those cash prices.
That's something I think most people don't even know they have the right to ask, or they don't know that exists, cash prices. But I will say, so obviously we don't live in the same state. I have a chiropractor here for my adjustments. And I remember I had an issue with my shoulder, and it did get better. It eventually like healed on its own, but I had an issue for a few months, and she said, I'm going to write up paperwork to like an order for an MRI. It was $500. And so she knows too. She's like, just save this, if you need it. If your shoulder's not getting better, if we can't, and she threw adjustments, it did get better and whatever. But I remember you and I talking and thinking, oh yeah, she knows that she can write this order up and send me out for an MRI, and it's going to be $500. And so I think that a lot of people don't even request MRIs. They just think, oh, insurance won't approve it. You have to be so far down the road with whatever condition you have before they'll even consider ordering an MRI, when in reality, they can ask for the cash price and go around the system, if you will, and save themselves so much money in a super expensive copay.
Well, I mean, and that's how I've handled my whole family, the 6 of us, is it's way cheaper for me to pay cash than it is for me to pay those kind of premiums, In 4 years, I have $100,000 saved. So if something actually happens, I'll pay me instead of a big corporation where they're having the time of their lives. And, and if nothing happens, then I've got that money set aside. So, and like I said, not everybody's health goals, not everyone's health status is the same. So I can't say, oh yeah, you have to do that. This will work for everyone. I'm not saying that. There's some people that are going to need insurance, but also, like, if you have a spouse that has a pre-existing medical condition, maybe get them their own policy and put everybody else on a different policy, so you're not paying those exorbitant premiums for everyone in the household. Just coming up with different ways to look at this. I mean, be creative for sure. So, and it'll be a lot cheaper. I increased my med pay on my car insurance, and it went up like $70 every 6 months or something. It was ridiculous. I was like, geez, it's the best money I've ever spent in case something happens. Yeah, just taking a look at that, and maybe putting your kids on their own policy or whatever. But there's a lot to look at, and maybe doing a family health share, like a Christian health share for part of the family, and leaving somebody else on their insurance. Insurance is another way to go. Like I said, just be creative about that, of what you think could work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to mention that chiropractic care is covered under Christian Family Health Shares. So if anybody's wondering about that, a lot of regular run-of-the-mill insurance policies from these big corporations don't cover chiropractic and other alternative medicine methods, and Christian Family Health Shares does. So just something to consider, because we're all
because their whole goal is to keep you healthy, right? So if you take care of your body, then they know that you're trying to stay healthy, which is going to decrease the amount that you're spending. So literally an entire year of chiropractic care is cheaper than 1 day in the hospital. So if you're able to take care of yourself, these Christian health shares know that you're not going to end up most likely in the hospital and spending all of this money and doing a $5,000 MRI and stuff like that. So if you're paying out of pocket, and when I say a cash price, you don't physically have to have like greenbacks in your pocket. You can use your credit card, stuff like that. So I wanted to clarify that, because a lot of people go, oh my gosh, well, how am I supposed to come up with that much cash? So my daughter went into the grocery store and all of their card readers were down, and they were telling everybody we're not taking credit cards, and 90% of the people turned around and walked out because they don't have any cash in their pocket. And she's like, I'm good.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I wanted to be clear about the cash aspect of it, is that it's not just greenback. So
Well, and I think the other big tip that you mentioned that I think people would not even think about is like upping their med pay on their car insurance. I don't think people would ever, I don't know anyone who's done that except you. So that was
and quite a bit. I mean, I did quite a bit, and I was shocked because I said, "Well, do you have higher amounts?" And he's like, "Well, you already have this much. Like, why would you want more than that?" And I'm like, "I just want to find out, like, something catastrophic." I mean, that's probably the most dangerous thing I do is get on the road with everybody else, right?
yeah.
So why wouldn't I put that as a priority? Because I trust most people about as far as I can throw them, right? Especially on the interstate or on a freeway or something. So I just made sure that the risks versus the potential benefits and stuff like that are weighed out for our family. And like I said, it's not going to be for the same for every person, but taking a look at that's really important. So the other thing too, is I wanted to mention, is that the average family premium for insurance has increased 52% in the last 10 years. So when people are like, we're bringing less money home,
Oh,
now you know. Like, it's not just that. It's not just this inflation recently. It's not all of the other stuff. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty, but if you think about it, it's increased 52% in the last 10 years. And that is an extreme amount. If we had car insurance that covered our fuel ups, our tire changes, our rotations, our oil changes, everything like that, we wouldn't be able to afford our car insurance either.
that's a good point. I didn't even think about it like that.
So we started using this for everything, and it's just gotten out of control. And there's some people who are using very little, and there's some people who are using a ton of it.
Yeah.
So really you have to decide what's working best for you and your family, and start looking at that kind of stuff.
And I also want to mention, we talked about obviously the genetic testing. I want to mention 7 years ago, my husband and I did our genetic testing through MaxGen. It does give you 30 pages of data. It's incredibly comprehensive, and you always call it the owner's manual for your body. And I just want to encourage people, don't be scared of it. I think that some people think, well, I don't want to know what genes I have, because then if I see that I have the gene for Alzheimer's, then that's going to plant that in my mind, and then I'm going to get that. So the reason you get genetic testing and get your owner's manual is so that you understand what genes you have and don't have. And then you can take steps, because now you have knowledge, to not turn those genes on. So they just kind of lie dormant in your body. And so it's important to understand what you're working with and what your genetic makeup is. So I just want to encourage people. And again, we'll put the link in the show notes if you want to get your testing through MaxGen. But I just love that you call it the owner's manual for your body, because it really is. And I think it's just so important for you to have those answers no matter who you are.
Well, I mean, and yeah, I mean, talking about that, I did them all on my kids. You can or don't need to use real names. Like, it's all about what you're comfortable with. Like, if you want your real name on there and your real birth date, that's fine. You don't, then as long as you're getting the information back and you know what to do with it, it's perfectly fine. We did it on our kids because I don't want them to get to 30 years old and be like, oh, I didn't know I had this, I want them to be able to say, okay, here's what I've got going on. If I do this, it's going to flip that light switch on, and then I'm going to end up with this issue. And if I do this, then that won't switch that light switch on or that gene on and express itself to its fullest potential, which we don't want most of those genes to do that, right?
Yeah.
With the ones that we're testing. Some of my kids have MTHFR, which 60% of the population has this genetic issue. And it creates a lot of issues for people's bodies. So I don't know if most people know about MTHFR, but 60% of the population has this, doesn't know it, so they can't do anything about it. But eating processed foods is a terrible idea for people who have this gene. There's a methylation issue in the liver, so the liver is not doing exactly what it needs to do. So these are things that we've talked to with our kids, we're like, hey, so maybe not drinking a bunch of alcohol. Maybe your friends at 20, 21, 22, 23, whatever, are starting to drink. That may not be the path for you because of these genetics, and not just from MTHFR, but some of the other stuff that showed up. And so we've had these conversations, so they can't go, oh, I didn't know. No, you knew the whole time. So there's no excuses. You don't get to say, oh, it's just bad luck. It's not bad luck. It's bad lifestyle choices. And now you can take control of that. And some people don't want that personal responsibility, but I've instilled that in our children, where I don't want to hear any complaining about it if you made these choices knowing full well what was going to happen. So we all do the best we can for where we're at. And you're not going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. But at the end of the day, if you have that information, you can make those choices long term. So, if you know that you have an increased risk for Parkinson's, there's things that you can do to head that off at the pass so you don't get treated for it. You don't have a miserable experience down the road. So if you're not a good detoxifier, there's going to be a whole host of other things going on. And so you might not want to eat those Fruit Loops every single day with the food dyes and the sugars and the processed and the fake vitamin B's and stuff like that are neurotoxins for people, so it gives you that information, and then you're going to make those decisions. But yeah, it's definitely an owner's manual, and it's well worth the money with the amount of information that you get. I can't say enough about it, but I do it all the time on my patients because that's your foundation. If you know what your genes are and what they're doing, you can basically fix anything.
That's an excellent point. Yeah. Just definitely encourage everyone to do it. And you only have to do it one time. So just remember, you just do it once.
Yeah, your genes don't change. It's who you are. So it's not like you have to get a blood test or get a genetic test like you do with blood tests every single year, every 6 months. It's like, this gives you the information so that you can manage it. If your homocysteine is high in your blood test, maybe take a look at your genetic test and you'll be like, oh, that's why. This is what the supplement I need to balance that out of the nutrition that I need,
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
that was a good point, Amy. Yeah.
This is fascinating. I mean, I love that we did this topic because I think a lot of people, first of all, they don't know about asking for the cash price. They believe their only avenue is traditional health insurance, and genetic testing. If they go through their insurance, they're paying up the wazoo, and there's another way to do it that's much, much cheaper and is very comprehensive. So we hit on 3 really big things today, and I'm really glad we're having this conversation. So thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't joined our school community before, I'll put the link in the show notes. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye.
That wraps up another episode of Speaking Holistically. Thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration to take charge of your health. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, be sure and join the Speaking Holistically school community by clicking the link in the show notes. There, you'll get access to daily podcast episodes, weekly live Q&As, educational content, and so much more. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep speaking holistically.